arteries. So this was kind of like confusing because doctors were telling him, oh, you got to take your calcium, for osteoporosis, and they're doing that, and then they end up with a heart attack. So how many of you haven't heard about that? Yeah. So that's a big situation, right? They're like, they did 3 huge trials in a row, and they're like, wait a second, this can't be because this goes against what we were taught. So why is it that women that take calcium and vitamin D would end up with a heart attack or calcium in the arteries? That's what I'm going to talk about. So vitamin D has a purpose of helping you absorb calcium in the gut. So here's a picture of your intestines. It looks like this. Your intestines are about 33 feet and have a surface area of 2 tennis courts, 3,000 square feet of surface material in your intestines. So you have a lot of absorption going on. And in this intestine, you have these little tiny holes. They're called vitamin D receptors. Vitamin D receptors. We'll come back to these. But the purpose of vitamin D is to help calcium be absorbed by 20 times the amount. So without vitamin D, you can't really absorb calcium too much, just a little bit. So that's why vitamin D is necessary. Where does vitamin D come from? The sun. Good. Where else? You can get it from the foods? Food, yeah. It also, your body makes it. Your body can make vitamin D. How many of you have not gotten a lot of sun in the last several months? Okay. Yeah. So what happens is you have a gland around your thyroid called the parathyroid gland. You have 4 of them right through here. And what they do is they store the vitamin D through the winter months. So if you don't have enough vitamin D, your body grabs some, and then it allows you to use it through the winter months. If you don't have enough calcium or vitamin D and your parathyroid is deficient, it'll start to take it from the bone. So in order for you to have osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is just before osteoporosis, you have to be very, very, very deficient. The body will do everything it can to balance the calcium in the blood. And that's why when they do a blood test, it always comes out normal. So you could have literally no calcium in the bone and show normal blood calcium. So that's why you can't always go by the blood test. That's like the worst place to look at. So vitamin D is from the sun, it's from your own body, and it's from food. Can anyone guess what types of foods have vitamin D? Broccoli? Dark greens? Very, very small amounts. Very small amounts. Vitamin D is a fat vitamin. It comes from fat. So it would be in cod liver oil, which I know you guys love. How many of you had your grandparents give you cod liver oil? Yeah, and then we stopped doing it. So cod liver oil is loaded with vitamin D. Mostly all the fish oils have vitamin D. There is some vitamin D in raw milk, but where are you going to find that? Unless you have a cow. So it's not really in there. So it's not in a lot of foods. It's very difficult to get vitamin D from food unless you're doing cod liver oil. So that's why we got to get it from the sun. But our bacteria in our gut does make it. But how many have ever had an antibiotic before? Yeah, probably wiped out the flora, the friendly bacteria. But if you have very good digestive bacteria, you can make it. And just since we're on the topic of bacteria, I want to let you know that on your body and in your body and around your body, you have close to 1,000 trillion bacteria and microbes growing around your body. I know you're probably disgusted right now, but if you looked at your skin, it's like a zoo of microbes, all these different things. The people that are really, really clean freaks and they're scrubbing their body and they're getting all cleansed, they usually have the most allergies because they wipe out those defenses. These microbes provide a lot of benefit to us. Immune system, They make vitamins. They make all your B vitamins. They make vitamin D. And they also protect your immune system. And they also get rid of your waste. And they also help you digest, especially dark, leafy green vegetables. So if you eat certain vegetables and you get gas or bloating, we know that you don't have those microbes in there. So it really comes from the microbes. Now, what we provide to the microbes is we give them room and board. So they live in us, and we feed them our waste, and then they give us all these other things. So it's kind of a nice exchange. The problem right now is there is a herbicide out there called glyphosate that they're using on the food supply right now that doesn't kill the herbs or the weeds. What it does is it prevents the microbes in the soil from absorbing minerals. So that's what it's doing. Does anyone ever heard of this thing, glyphosate? Okay. This is Roundup. You ever hear Roundup? Like in GMO, Monsanto. How many of you do not know what GMO is? Okay. What's GMO spelled backwards? Oh my God. GMO is an alteration in the food supply. They basically genetically alter it to resist this herbicide. So then you could spray the chemicals on the corn and the soybeans, so then they don't die, but all the weeds die. So they resist this chemical. But they really kill everything in the soil. 97% of all soy is GMO in America. And 85% all corn is GMO. So unless you're doing organic or non-GMO, you're getting this chemical that are really just wiping out your intestinal flora that's supposed to be there. But it's amazing because your cells are only 1/10 of what makes up your body. You're mostly bacteria. I mean, just walking around, you have all this, you can't really see it. It's about 4 pounds. It's through the colon, it's all through the body. But we need these microbes to make vitamins. That's why it's really important to consume like fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, some of these other things. Kefir. Kefir is interesting because kefir has a unique property. It'll actually kill off the bad yeast if you have a yeast stuff or candida. But yeah, glyphosate kills off the microbes because they prevent it from absorbing all the nutrients. But 95% of all this herbicide is given to animals, and actually animal feeds. So all the animal feeds are fed soy and corn, not grass-fed, and that's really why we have the problem, because you're just eating a lot of chemicals that go right through. Unless that cow is grass-fed, I mean, it's not very good. Okay, so we got vitamin D. Your body makes it. You get it from the sun. Cod liver oil will be high. Fish oils is another thing. And the purpose of vitamin D is to help you absorb a lot more calcium, 20 times more calcium than you would if you didn't have it. And so what happens, once it gets absorbed, it puts the calcium in the blood. So calcium is absorbed from vitamin D, and it goes from the intestine to the blood. And some of it kind of trickles on through the bone. But as you know, women who take calcium and vitamin D have a higher risk of plaquing in the arteries. Okay? So now, the next thing I got to show you is why that is. In 2007, they just discovered a new vitamin. It's called vitamin K2. Has anyone ever heard of vitamin K2? You have. Okay. Do you know what it is? No. Okay. Do you know what it is? Yeah. It's all over YouTube. So we know it's true. No. No, I'm always on YouTube. Yes. What's the difference between vitamin K2 and vitamin K1?
Because in hospitals they give kids in a hospital they give kids vitamin K.
Yeah, they do. You have certain vitamins that are called fat-soluble vitamins. That means they come from fat. Vitamin A, D, E, K. Those are all fat-soluble. And so it's important to give children vitamin K because you need it for clotting and healing, especially in baby formulas. That's vitamin K1. But there's also vitamin K2, which, oh my gosh, this thing is very important. Okay, so vitamin K2 has an interesting function of transporting the calcium into the bone and the teeth. So vitamin K2 will actually strip off calcium from your arteries. If there's plaquing in your arteries, it will actually clean out your arteries if you have plaquing. So that's pretty amazing. In 6 weeks, there's even cardiologists now that are using it as a way to clean out your arteries. And what happens with the calcium, if you don't have vitamin K2, your arteries get hardened, especially the aorta right up by the heart. And you get these plaquing things, and what's even more of a better indicator for heart attacks is a calcium scan on your arteries. So you have these arteries right here through the carotids and the coronary, which is on the heart, and then you have all these other arteries and veins. When you increase vitamin D in calcium, it starts to put all this calcium in the blood, on the arteries. So vitamin K2 will take this calcium and stick it in the bone and make your bones like steel. Makes it really, really hard, and it makes your teeth very strong. Now, Price and Pottinger Nutrition, way back in the 30s, actually knew about that vitamin, but they didn't have a name for it. So they called it Factor X. They just said Factor X because they didn't know what it was, but they knew there was something that made your teeth really, really strong, because they studied people in Africa, and their teeth were always perfect, and their dental bones were always nice. And then in America, they get all these like teeth problems and cavities and all this other stuff. And they found they didn't have children that were raised without K2 have a lot of dental problems, especially in this bone right up here. The teeth starts going too high or too low. This whole dental thing is affected. So if you have teeth problems or cavities, we know you're deficient in K2. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry. So what are the sources of vitamin K2?
The sources of vitamin K2 are on a need-to-know basis, and I'm getting there. The other thing I was going to mention is that there's even a holistic dentist society that are helping people fix their cavities using K2. And so I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I'm seeing all these success stories on helping people even with cavities. Because I always wondered, because my teeth have been completely redone. These are fake teeth, by the way. I've had every single tooth, a cavity, all sorts of dental problems. Of course, I lived on pure sugar, and I never had K2 growing up. Well, I was craving it. I'll tell you what I was craving, but I had a lot of dental problems. And I'd keep going to the dentist. I'm like, what's the cause of these cavities? Why do I have to keep getting cavities? Why don't they tell me how to fix it? They say, well, it just comes from a bacteria, and we don't really know. You're just going to have to get the cavity drilled again. So I have a lot of dental work. So vitamin K2 will help not just fix a cavity, but they've even had it fix cracks in the teeth. That's pretty amazing. Also, when you take vitamin K2, it can actually clean out all the junk on the bottom of your jaw, all that tartar. It just cleans it right up. Because that's the calcium that builds up that needs to be going right into the bone. So if you add vitamin K2 to the vitamin D for osteoporosis, you will make those bones really, really solid. So as I was studying all this, of course, then the next week I get all these people coming in with osteoporosis. I'm like, what the heck? So this lady comes in, her bones on her hips are just almost hollow, and she's just kind of walking like this, and they want to do hip surgery, and she doesn't want to do it. So I says, I know exactly what I'm going to give you, vitamin K2. I was told to go get some in the health food store. She comes back in a week. She goes, what did you do? I said, what? She goes, I just feel a lot better. I feel stronger. So it's been about a month, but I'm going to send her back for another study, but she's doing better and better and better and better and better. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Now, where does vitamin K2 come from? Only 3 sources. Number 1, goose liver. Yeah. How many of you do not consume goose liver on a regular basis? Okay. You might want to start. No, it's good. Number 2, butter from cows that are grass-fed. It has to be on. You have to raise the cow in your backyard. Now you have to look on the label. Is it grass-fed? If the cow is fed grain, it will not work. There's no K2 because it's a fat vitamin. You know the thing that I craved as a child, even from my birthday when I was like 5 years old, what I wanted is a pound of butter. I didn't know why at the time, and now I know. I was like trying to get my teeth fixed because I'm like, and then my mother's like, you're gonna clog your arteries, you know, and I would eat the whole thing like in a day. I know. I just craved butter. It probably was grass-fed back then. Yeah, there is a butter that's called Kerrygold. It's from Ireland. I think it's in Trader Joe's. Kerrygold butter it is grass-fed. But some of these ancient civilizations, not ancient, but old civilizations in Switzerland and other countries, they always gave the milk and the butter from cows that have fed the grass in the spring to the growing kids and the mothers that were pregnant to give all the fat-soluble vitamins, because butter also has vitamin A and D. So it has a lot of the fat-soluble vitamins. Okay? Number 3. But see, most butter is garbage out there because it's not grass-fed. And then we have egg yolks. But from chickens that live on grass. Good luck. Where are you going to find those? You would want a chicken that eats the bugs and the grass, not the grain. Again, here's the problem, right? Okay, there's a 4th one, all right? Okay. Cheese that have been from cows that have had grass-fed. So where would you find that? You'd have to go to, you'd have to get European cheese. And I happen to find it in Trader Joe's. So when you get the cheese from the cow that's on a mountaintop in France, that's what they say right on the label. This cheese is from a goat on a mountaintop in France. I'm like, okay, that's the good one. And this cheese is like a goat cheese on a mountain that was put in a cave for 1,000 days. Okay, I think you're good with that one. So they have some really wild European cheeses there. That would have some vitamin K. Now, there are some vegetarian sources of vitamin K too. And you get those from the health food store. It's called NATO. That's a vitamin K2. You'll see it'll say at MK7. Just kind of, I'm not going to explain what that means, but you want the MK7 if you want to be a vegetarian. It's a fermented type of soy, non-GMO, and you can get the vitamin K2. So those are the sources of vitamin K2. Now, check this out. If K2 helps your bones, and it helps clean up the arteries, and it helps your teeth, and it protects against heart because it cleans up the calcium, And the whole calcium, the cholesterol thing that we were taught was kind of bogus. Then what are the doctors recommending what are the doctors telling you to avoid for heart problems? Yeah, the exact things to help reverse the heart disease are the exact things they're saying to avoid. Don't eat fat, don't eat cholesterol, don't eat this, don't eat that. Wow, interesting. No wonder the teeth fall apart, we get bones that fall apart. Yeah, don't worry, it gets worse. So then a question is, what about arthritis? What can you do for arthritis? Does anyone know of anyone with arthritis? Okay. K2 is wonderful for arthritis because it's been known to reverse spurring and grinding and all the gunk in your joints, all that cracking and popping. So you can even do what's called remodeling on your joints if you take enough K2. And so you can kind of clean up your joints. Now, I'm doing this right now for my joints because I went over a cliff with a motorcycle and messed up my back. And I had these spurs all the way up down. I could tell they're there. They don't bother me too much, but I've been taking this and I'm like, okay, I don't even feel anything in there anymore. So it definitely is cleaning up my back. I like to be the human guinea pig for these things. But what you want to do, and what I recommend, is get a vitamin D3. And if you wanted to help your bones, or you had a problem with a joint and you want to clean it up, or if you have a cavity you want to work on, whatever, you want to take 10,000 IUs. And make sure you have the K2 with it. And you want to do 100 micrograms. It comes in 100 micrograms. Not milligrams, but micrograms of MK7. Okay, so these are the two, kind of the ratios. If you have someone with like severe asthma, for example, or psoriasis of the skin, you want to bump this up to 20,000 and make this 200. Cleans up the skin. So these fat vitamins are mobilizers of calcium. They mobilize calcium. They make the calcium called ionized, which is very, very, very small. Now, one of the functions of calcium is to prevent tumors. And I'm talking about any type of tumor, from a skin tag to a boil, to a polyp in your colon, to a fibroid, to a cyst. They're all the same thing. It's like a extra cell growth. So calcium, if you take the fat-soluble vitamins with it, will help make the calcium go into the tissues to prevent the extra duplication of those cell growth things. So it actually inhibits these little growths of cells. So if you look at someone's face, for example, you're going to usually find a little type of bump or a little growth or a little thing. Those are all little tumors growing on their body. So the immune system is constantly working to try to clean that out. But if you actually have a lot of them, that means you're very calcium deficient, but it's not necessarily calcium. It could be the fat-soluble vitamins that you need. That is one of the reasons why I take cod liver oil. I take it in a tablet, just because, yeah. Okay, so we have calcium. We need vitamin K2. We need vitamin D3. Make sure to take the D3. Don't take the D2. Take the D3. But we also need some other things to help you absorb this. You need to have the correct pH, okay? In order for calcium to be delivered into the deeper cells, we need to make sure our pH is correct. So I'll need a volunteer for this demonstration. How about you? Okay, good. So this is just a really good way to test this. So you're going to take this little thing and just hold this right here on the bottom part. Yeah. And just kind of get it wet in your mouth. Okay. Okay, good. So let me just see what this is here. So I'm sure you can't see this, but we're looking at the pH of your saliva, and it's actually pretty good. It's like 7. So here, hold that right there. That's your present, and thank you for sitting up. Let's see. Does anyone have, let's say, a problem with like cramping in the calves or anything like that? You do? Okay. So what I'll do is yeah, can you come up here? Yeah. So we're going to, let's get the microphone so everyone can hear. So hold the bottom of this, okay, and get that wet. Okay, let's take it out there. Let me see what you got there. It's good.
It's good?
It's good. Yeah, there's another reason for cramping. We'll cover that.
Does the calcium help regulate the pH level?
Does the calcium help with what?
Regulate the pH level or
Oh,
balance
wow.
the pH level? Or
Wow.
How
Wow.
would a person be able to get their pH level balanced?
Very, very, very smart question. Okay, any other questions? No, I'm just kidding. Calcium is a buffer for pH. It's used as the main thing to help regulate the pH. Yes, but the question is, you don't necessarily want to start drinking alkaline water because alkaline water. Yes, yeah. Because it's not natural to be drinking a 9. That's way too high. Yeah, and I'm gonna explain this because it's a little confusing. When you look at the pH of the body, you have the urine, you have the colon, you have the stomach, you have the gallbladder, you have the saliva, you have the blood, you have all these different pHs. They're all different. So the question, when you're talking about what pH should the body be, well, what tissue you're talking about. So the saliva mimics the blood. Now, a urine should also be acidic. You don't want an alkaline urine. When you start taking alkaline water, the urine starts going higher and higher and higher. You're going to offset a whole bunch of stuff. Whole bunch of stuff, yeah. There's a hormone called cortisol. It's a stress hormone. You may have heard people who have stress around you. Cortisol will make your body extremely alkaline. Extremely. You would think it would be acidic, but it's not. It alkalizes the body. It's called alkalosis. When your pH is too alkaline in the blood, it's already alkaline, but if it's excessively alkaline, calcium will start plugging everything up, regardless of how many fat-soluble vitamins you take. You'll start getting tartar on the teeth, cataracts, that's buildup of calcium on the eye. You'll get stones on the kidney, spurring in the heel. You'll get twitching on the nerve as neuritis, that's calcium on the nerve root. Arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, a lot of calcium problems. So that's interesting, isn't it? So, yes.
I just came in a while ago and I saw on the television out there on the screen about goose liver and egg. What is goose liver?
Goose liver is the liver from a goose.
So it can eat?
If you could find an organic one, or else you can do the grass-fed butter or the egg yolk or the supplement you can get at the health food store. There's many different sources of vitamin K2. You don't have to get it from the goose liver.
Okay. So egg, every time you go to the doctor say every day you should eat a egg.
A what?
A egg. Eggs.
Egg. Okay, got it, yeah.
They say egg is good for you and good for your body.
Yeah.
So I don't do meat and I don't do eggs.
Okay, then you can do the natto, which is either a fermented soy from Japan. You can get that. Look it up, natto, N-A-T-T-O, or take it as a supplement.
Oh, okay. So back in my country, we know the fowls, the chickens
Jamaica?
that run around. Jamaica.
I thought so.
The chickens, the fowls that run around on the yard, in the yard.
Yes.
Those eggs are the better egg because they don't have fertility. They don't have no hormones or anything.
Exactly.
I think those eggs are the best eggs to eat.
Yes, I agree 100%.
But I guess they're hard to get.
Yes, welcome to America. We basically have our eggs in barns like 3,000 per square foot. So yeah, you'd have to find an organic farmer and really find out what they feed the chicken. And there are some at the around here, and an Amish farmer, something like that. And I really, if I could, I would. If I could raise some chickens, I would, because I would like to really have these chickens eat the grass. But in my neighborhood, they won't let me have chickens. So,
I don't understand K2. What is K2?
You missed the beginning.
Yes, I know.
So K2 is the vitamin that will take the calcium from your arteries, from the tartar from the teeth, from the joints, and drive it into the bone in the teeth. It'll make your bone and teeth like steel. Vitamin D is the transporter, the train, but then vitamin K2 is the trucks that deliver the calcium all the way to the destination. Vitamin K2 work together.
When I was a little girl, my mom, goat, you know goat?
Yes.
My mom used to give me goat milk to drink. And I know that is the best milk that we could ever get before these milk that come in and cow.
Yeah, probably grass-fed too.
The goat milk is good for your bones.
Yeah, because the K2.
We used to drink it every day.
Yeah.
But once, 2, 3 a week, she always give us a little to drink. Not a full glass,
just a little bit.
But a little bit. And she always tells us that it is good for our bones.
I think there's just been a lot of good things that our grandparents and our parents gave us back then, but they just stopped doing that. And now,
But those grandparents are died.
I know. It's too bad because that grass-fed goat had a lot of K2. And that's probably why your teeth are so perfect and your jaw is so good. But in America, it's like the kids, their faces are getting kind of thin there, you know. So anyway, that's what K2 does. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Regarding the pH level and alkaline water, because I actually go to the health food store and I buy alkaline water, and I thought that was something beneficial for my family. But I mean, what gives? Like, what can I, as a mother, do to help my children? Because I know that they may be deficient in some areas, and just what can be done?
Yeah, good question.
Confusing,
Yes, it is confusing. There's so many conflicting data. I have the alkaline water machine myself. It's sitting in my basement. I had that. But the problem is when I would check someone's pH, I check urine pH, I check saliva, it just pushed it off the scale way over here. And the person started to see.
Well, I don't have to.
Go ahead.
I can just tell you.
We need it further. We're recording this.
Well, I know that my children, and we sometimes don't eat vegetables every single day. We try to do the vegetable stuff, but we don't eat as much because my children are picky. And I know that some people can relate to what I'm saying with their children. I give them a supplement. I give them the chlorophyll. Is that helpful mixed with juice? I mean, or is that a bad thing?
The juice is concentrated sugar. That won't give them enough nutrition. It's just sugar water. It makes it taste good.
Okay.
But with my kids, I didn't really know a lot about nutrition when they were very young, unfortunately. And all three of my kids, bad teeth, the whole thing. If I would have known, I would have probably given them a lot more fat-soluble vitamins starting out because that's really what's missing. As far as the vegetables, what I do is I do a lot of educating on my kids, very gently, until they, on their own accord, start eating it. Because I already tried the other route, it doesn't work. You're not leaving the table before you finish your broccoli. So yeah, I kind of educate them. For example, the properties in some of these vegetables for cancer, I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's like a natural drug to help prevent things. And also, this is another one for your kids. Are these? Okay. So, what's your name? Anna? Okay, so check this out. All right. So our bodies need about 4,700 milligrams of potassium. So that probably doesn't mean anything to you. But potassium is necessary to prevent diabetes. That's like blood sugars that mess up and they start getting fat in your stomach, and you have all sorts of problems with your feet. You start getting burning feet, gangrene. That's like your tissue starts rotting in your feet. You go blind. That's diabetes. So potassium prevents diabetes, and it protects you. It also protects your heart against high blood pressure and high pulse rate, okay? So potassium is necessary to prevent cravings to sugar, too. Yeah, you can knock out the sugars, but we need 4,700 milligrams. So what foods are high in potassium? Bananas, right? Bananas have 400 milligrams. So are you in math? You have a math class? How many times does 400 go into 4,700? It's like, I think it's 11, isn't it? It's at least 11 and a half, okay? 11 bananas a day. How many bananas do you eat a day? What's it? None. Okay. So where are you getting your potassium from? KFC. You don't get your potassium, right? So if every day you need 4,700 milligrams and you're not getting your potassium, where does it come from? No, where's your body going to get it? It's going to start pulling from your bones, from your tissues, from the cells. Okay, it's going to start pulling over time. Now, you could have vegetables, about 7 cups of vegetable, and get close to this. But how many cups of vegetables do you eat in a given day? Probably not 7, right?
She likes corn and she likes broccoli. That's it.
So then we take those vegetables that she likes and we just give her 7 cups. But corn is not a vegetable, so we won't. No. Okay, so we need a lot more vegetables. You can also take kale and blend it with some frozen fruit and then at least get the kale, because kale is like massive. So we can do that. But here's the thing, that if you start now, you could prevent a lot of problems down the road. So learn from other people's mistakes. But yeah, we need a lot of potassium to get, but that's kind of what I do to my kids until they're, until they make the change.
Yeah, I try to be an example to them.
Yeah. Yes?
Can skin tags also be related to like genetics? I mean, is it possible?
Genetic for what test?
I mean, as far as skin tags, you were saying
skin tags.
Because my dad was just covered, and I've got a lot of them.
Yeah,
I just wondered.
It's not genetic because it's viral, but what your dad lived with you growing up, same environment. You guys share similar DNA, so you have. Okay, so let me just explain it by this. There's some recent microscopes that were developed recently to look into the body even deeper than they had before. And they found something really interesting in the saliva, in your joints, in your skin. They found all sorts of DNA for microbes you've never been exposed to. Like to the microbe in the plague. Like, what the heck, the plague? That was a long time ago. So somehow, through genetic, your ancestors, you pick up all this immune reaction in DNA, and it just carries on from person to person. So they're even finding that some of the DNA can cross horizontally from just people living together. That's interesting. That would explain why the husband and wife starts looking like each other the more longer they live, and they start looking like their dog. The dog starts looking like the humans. Isn't that true? I looked at my dog. I'm like, there's some similarities there. And my wife kind of looks like me, and I'm like, what's going on here? So it must be that. So if there's a transfer of DNA from the family, contact and everything, then you probably could be more susceptible to the virus as well. But virus is the papillomavirus that creates the skin tag. If you have a lot of skin tags, what that means is that you're probably deficient in some of the fat-soluble vitamins that deliver the calcium to protect you against those little mini tumors. So people come in all the time, and I'm looking at all these tags and these bumps and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to recommend the fat-soluble vitamins for this person, and this is going to clear this out. But that way you could deliver the calcium to suppress the growth of that little tumor.
When you mentioned calcium, when you're talking about the calcium that's naturally in our body?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, from the food. So it's not necessarily people are deficient in calcium, it's the transporters that deliver the calcium to make it ionized or small to be absorbed. You had a question?
My daughter, she had a question.
Okay. So is potassium K2, no, that's different vitamin. Vitamin K2 is a different vitamin than potassium. Vitamin K2 is a vitamin, potassium is a mineral. Vitamin K is a symbol for potassium. Oh, yeah, okay. So how many of you have taken chemistry before? Yeah. So you know that K is a symbol for potassium. That's the confusion. Good point. Yeah, the periodic table. Thank you. Yeah, that was good. That is confusing. Okay, so getting back to this stress cortisol, this alkaline thing, if your body is not acidic enough, you can't mobilize calcium. And that's why you have bacteria in your gut that make acid. Lactobacillus, lactate, lactic acid. You have bacteria that make lactic acid in your gut. You ever have kombucha tea? Yeah, that's all lactic acid. Yeah. It is helpful because it's disgusting. Well, do you know why it's disgusting? Because it's a waste product from microbes, but if you don't like it, then your pH is probably the other way. It's probably a little too acid. So it's weird. It's like your body will kind of tell you what you need. If you crave it, some days I want it, some days I don't need it. So your body kind of knows what it needs if you pay attention. But if you give someone something like apple cider vinegar and they just go, no thanks, they're probably too acidic. So then we're going to have to alkalize them with a little calcium. Not Tums.
You spoke about arthritis earlier. Does that include gout as well?
Gout is different.
Okay.
Yeah, gout is a protein metabolism problem, not a calcium problem. And that would be more of a kidney weakness that you would have to work on the kidney. And kidney beans are really good to cleanse the kidney for gout. And you just probably would want to not consume a lot of heavy-duty protein because it triggers gout, especially turkey. Okay, so this pH of this calcium. The big source, the organ in your body that controls pH is the stomach. Your stomach, if it's not right, it throws off everything. So your stomach is really important because it needs to be between 1 and 3 as far as the pH. If anyone knows what that means, it's like extremely acid. It's like battery acid. And so if that pH goes higher and becomes too alkaline, if it's like 4, 5, or 6, what's going to happen? You're going to get acid reflux. Because this valve can no longer close, so the acid will come up here. So most people, if not all people, that have acid reflux really don't have enough acid. Because that acid coming up, if it was hydrochloric, it would burn a hole through the esophagus. It never does. It's lactic acid. It's a waste acid. It's a sour acid that comes up through here. So if you have acid reflux, we know you don't have enough acid. And one of the best ways to naturally keep your stomach good and healthy is to consume sea salt in the diet. What do the doctors tell you to avoid? Salt. The exact thing, because sodium chloride. Chloride makes up the hydrochloride. Okay, so it's amazing. Here's what I realized. Every single thing that the doctor tells you, if you do the exact opposite, you will be healthy. It always they find that what you're telling us was the opposite. It goes for everything. Yes.
Before you go too far, Doc, I need to kind of back up just a little bit because I know that you're allowing us to ask questions a little bit as you go along. So if you just back up maybe 1 or 2 pages to K2, which I thought maybe you wait to the end, but you answer the question as you go along. So I just want to take this time to get it real clear.
This one?
On the part where it talks about, I think that's it. Where it talks about the cows.
Yeah, the cows.
They go feeding grass and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it possible that, because my wife and I are vegetarian, is it possible that we can also get the K2 from wheatgrass?
No.
I did find
Yeah.
a vitamin D3 that is of a vegetarian source.
Yeah.
Based source.
Yeah.
D3.
Yeah, you can get vegetarian sources from D3, and you can even get a vegetarian source of K2 from natto, N-A-T-T-O.
Right.
That's a prevented soy, but because K2 is mainly come from animal fats, it's not in wheatgrass, no.
Okay, so it's how it's processed in the animal's body itself.
It's basically converted by the animal into the K2. But it's interesting because the cow eats the grass that has a lot of vitamin K1 and converts it to K2. Interesting. So they're in the same family, but the conversion is there. If the cow doesn't eat the grass, then it doesn't ever get the K2. So anyway, that's interesting. Okay, so we have the pH thing. If your stomach is too alkaline, you're going to get acid reflux. You're going to get indigestion. You're going to get bloating. You're going to get gas. You're not going to be able to digest the fibers of the vegetables, especially cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. And some people that eat beans do have gas. I'm serious, it happens to some people. Not in this room, but that's because there's an enzyme missing, okay? An enzyme is missing. Now, wait a second, what's an enzyme? Enzymes are the workhorse in the body that help break stuff down and build stuff back up. So, guess what makes that enzyme? A bacteria, a friendly bacteria. So, it's the good bacteria that make the enzyme. I could just use this right here. So really, if you have problems digesting, we know that either your stomach is not acid enough, and you're getting acid reflux, bloating, this whole thing here, or you're missing the bacteria that makes the enzymes. That's why it's really, really, really important for young adults to try to consume more raw foods, because heat kills the enzymes. And you're born with a certain amount of enzymes, and then you can tap them out, and without enzymes, you're pretty much going to get degenerative diseases. So it's very important to do raw foods. And fermented foods. Sauerkraut is really good. Other types of fermented vegetables, that's really healthy. And kombucha tea, thank you. So these enzymes are really, really, really important. Okay, so now we got this thing over here called the pancreas. The pancreas is right over here. It's right underneath your rib cage. The pancreas regulates blood sugars, can cause diabetes if there's a problem, but what a lot of people don't know, there's another part of the pancreas that helps you make enzymes. And this is fascinating because your body, depending on what you eat, your body will release any number of enzymes to break down carbohydrates, proteins, or fats. And your pancreas does this all day long. and it helps you digest. And it'll even break down the DNA from the protein from any type of proteins. I mean, it's just fascinating how it'll break it down. But how many of you were raised on a lot of junk food? Okay. How many abused sugar in your life? In the past. I know you don't do it right now. So what happens, you just really waste out that pancreas, and then you wonder why your pancreas can't digest. So diabetics have massive problems with digestion, especially protein. And then undigested protein turns into autoimmune issues because your immune system starts attacking the proteins, and you start having all these autoimmune for the thyroid and all sorts of things. So your digestion is very, very, very important. But getting back to calcium, you need a very good acidic stomach to digest that calcium. And if you don't have that, the calcium starts building up around the tissues, not in the bone. Yeah. So we need pH. Okay, so now, one more thing. So we have a pH thing. So here's calcium. We have a pH. We have a vitamin D, vitamin K2, and we need also bile. What is bile? Here's your liver, and then we got bile, which is made by your liver, and it secretes from the little gallbladder, and it pushes bile into the small intestine. Now, bile is the thing that helps you absorb vitamin D and K and A. All the fat-soluble vitamins are dependent on your bile. If you don't have the bile, you can't absorb it. So you see the problem with calcium? It's not just the calcium, it's the fat-soluble vitamins, but it could be that you don't have the factors to digest it. It could be the pH. So these are things that are that's why it's a little complex. But what happens, what if you're deficient in bile? What would happen? You're going to get right shoulder pain, right around here and back here, and right here. You're going to get burping, belching. You're going to become deficient in vitamin A, and your vision at night will be poor. You'll have problems with the retina and the eye and the cataracts, and a lot of problems with the vision because you need the vitamin A for the eye. Carotene from vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you can't pull in carotene, so you start getting macular problems with your eye. So this bile is so, so important. And you could also feel bloating when you eat, like right here on the right side. That's a bile deficiency. Constipation is a symptom of a lack of bile because bile lubricates the colon. Bile, okay, so now I want to take it one step further, so just track with me for a second. This is fascinating. There's a lot of research right now that studies something called the vitamin D receptor. Vitamin D gets absorbed in the gut, and there's this little tiny receptor that receives it. It's like a little ear. This does not have just to do with calcium, it has to do with your immune system. Do you realize that your entire immune system is influenced on a major degree by this one receptor right here? By this one little receptor, your entire immune system. And what's even more fascinating is that microbes, viruses, bacteria, the bad guys, will have a tendency to knock that out and block it. These microbes living on your body are very intelligent. So they will go after your immune system, the machine. It could be a movie about this because this is so fascinating. So it knocks out this vitamin D receptor. Not do your bones go downhill, but also the immune system starts going haywire. So they're now finding drugs that activate that receptor to override all these microbes. But I don't like drugs. So, yeah, exactly. So I was researching and I found, like, what would open that receptor up? What would help fix that receptor? And I found it's bile. Bile will reestablish it. That's why bile is very, very important in all these autoimmune cases, immune cases. Now, the question is, if you don't have bile, you can get it as a supplement. You could take it, and you just take it with a meal and start replacing it. But I do find a lot of people deficient in bile. And all of a sudden, everything starts working because now they can start eliminating, absorbing fat-soluble vitamins and whatnot. Now, what triggers bile is saturated fats. One of the difficulties of being a vegetarian is that you don't eat a lot of saturated fat. So you could do coconut oil. That it would be one way to trigger it. You had a question.
Just really quick. Acidophilus.
Acidophilus.
Is that helpful for
Yes. Acidophilus is a good bacteria that makes lactic acid. And so you do want to kind of emphasize the probiotics because the probiotics are very important in your gut, especially if you have antibiotics. Yes, you're welcome. One last thing about vitamin D. People that don't get a lot of sun and are trying to lose weight, apparently, genetically, our bodies tend to hibernate during the winter. And what happens, most overweight people are deficient in vitamin D. And I have found when you take more vitamin D or get more sun, it does tend to kick in the metabolism a little bit. So if you are trying to lose weight, vitamin D could help you. But make sure you take the K2. Yes?
Yes, I was just about to ask that, but you just said it. When you lack of vitamin and you take too much vitamin medication, what happens?
If you take too much vitamin D?
No, the medication they give if your vitamin D is low.
Yeah, they give you large amounts of like vitamin D3 from the prescription pharmacy. They'll give you that, but they never give you the K2. That's the problem.
So what if you take too much medication for it?
Then what happens, you become vitamin D hypertoxicity, which basically you're going to get too much calcium that plugs up your arteries. You're going to get calcification of the carotid arteries through here, and eventually a heart attack. Other than that, it'll be fine. But, yeah. Without the K2.
You mentioned coconut oil as a way to stimulate bile production. I don't like to drink coconut water, but I use coconut oil on my skin. So if I do that daily, that's not enough?
No.
Okay.
No, you got to take it orally.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. What's that?
Smoothie.
Yeah, take some coconut oil and maybe put it in your kale shake. Yeah.
I usually cook with coconut oil. I don't use olive oil.
Mike.
I cook with coconut oil instead of olive oil.
I like that. Just don't put the coconut in the lemon and shake it all up with anything else. No. Yeah, that's fine. Cook with it. I think that's a great idea. And also, palm oil is also good to cook with because palm oil is also a saturated fat, but no one really talks about that, but it's a very healthy thing.
On YouTube again, they talked about how palm oil and orangutans are, I suppose the orangutans are being exploited through the harvesting of palm oil. So I have a little bit of a problem with that.
Okay. A good question. I didn't know that. I'll have to watch the YouTube video on that one. And I do watch a lot of YouTube. Yes? Yeah.
So what vitamins do you recommend for every day? Like, is there one capsule that contains all of it, or do I need to take 25 capsules a day? I'm serious.
So basically, if we just talk about vitamin D, because you opened a can of worms with what vitamins I should take, that would have to be like a one-on-one because everyone's different. But if we're just talking about vitamin D, you can get them in 10,000 units. So you could take one pill and then take one K2.
Is there a certain type of brand that is recommended?
I don't have a brand for you. There are some good ones out there. I haven't tested all of them. I don't have enough data to evaluate them. I am getting my own K2. It's going to take another couple weeks because I wanted to put it with a blend of K1 and a couple other nutrients. So it's taking a little more time because I wanted to work it synergistically. So, yeah.
I'm Nigerian, so there's a lot of traditional foods that go home when I go home. And my mom would use palm oil to make them, but because of the way it looks, especially when it's cold, she said, you know, that clogs up the arteries and all of that. So could you just say just a little bit on palm oil so I can go home and tell her it's okay?
Palm oil is, I mean, just look it up on the YouTube. Now, it's almost equivalent to coconut oil. Yeah, for the immune system. Palm oil is almost equivalent to coconut oil. It's kind of a red oil, and it's just, there's a lot of great properties about it. Yeah, it's good. Yes. How do you consume the coconut oil?
Other than just like taking a spoon and...
You can cook with it. You can put it in a shake.
Okay.
You know, put it on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
It's good.
No. Yeah. I have a recipe. I do some grass-fed butter, and I do have a recipe for a cookie. Because I was like, how am I going to consume this stuff? Because I'm not just going to eat it with a spoon, like I did when I was younger. I made these cookies, and they turned out like a dog biscuit. So I started to work with them over and over and over to make them. I think I made it 45 times. I perfected it. And oh my goodness, these are good. And if you want to get, anyone want the recipe? Yeah. Okay, it's on my blog. Look under recipes. If you want, if you fill out this form, put your email, I will send you that recipe of the latest version of the cookie. The problem is it's not made with wheat or sugar, so it has to be refrigerated or actually in the freezer. And it's deadly good. And you can eat those. It's with almond flour and also pecans. And it just makes it so good. So yeah, it's very, very delicious, and it has the vitamin K too. Yeah.
Excuse me. I use a lot of coconut oil, and you can buy it at Costco for a lot cheaper. I use it on vegetables.
Coconut oil?
Anything.
You use coconut oil?
Coconut oil on vegetables. It makes anything taste better.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. The coconut oil is, I mean, it's awesome. Good. Any other questions? Yes.
A lot of the things that you have said, as far as the symptoms go, I can see myself there, little symptoms. And even though it's almost like overwhelming for me right now, because even though I've gotten to B, I have so much more to do. Do you do like consultants to guide me? Because it's almost like there isn't any guide out there.
Yeah, one of the things I can help you with is, one thing I'm good at is evaluation, and I'll be glad to do an evaluation, and anyone that wants a kind of a one-on-one, we can just figure out what's going on, put you on the right track, keep it simple. But here's one last thing, and then I'll be quiet. The one problem in healthcare is they don't connect the dots. The doctors will say, come in next time and we'll talk about that symptom. What? Wait a second. Everything connects. So we're over-specialized. One doctor looks at this, but they don't look at the other, and so they keep everything disconnected. What you have to do when you evaluate is align all the data to some underlying cause, and I'm writing a book about it. It's taking a long time because there's a lot of things that I have to simplify, and that's been tough. But yes, evaluation is what's missing. Medicine has become the management of symptoms. That's why I don't want to get into the, I have this, take this. You have this, take that. I'd rather like, okay, what's all the data? What's underneath the whole thing? Like, for example, let's say the fat-soluble vitamin D. It could be that you have too much cortisol that's blocking your bile, and all you need to do is kind of lower that to help the release of bile. It could be you just need a little bile to help you absorb all the vitamin D, so that way you're not taking a bunch of pills. But it is hard to take vitamin K2 in your current environment unless you have a farm. So that's what's missing.
I'm a nursing student, and I had to do a research paper on wine. So I did the research paper, and all the research that I'd looked at talked about, how it helps coronary arteries and all that sort of thing. But all the pieces were the research was missing a piece, and in that it didn't talk about what the wine did to the other parts of the body. And all the research is set up that way, where it talks about coronary arteries and doesn't talk about the brain and doesn't talk about what it does to the other cells. And that's all encompassing in peer-reviewed journals.
Yeah.
And so it's not just that particular issue, it's all over. The whole industry is built that way, and doctors don't learn nutrition, and nurses hardly learn nutrition. It's really bad.
It is really bad. I totally agree on 100%. I'm on the same wavelength. The wine, why does the wine help you? It's because of the things in the grapes, but the alcohol messes up with your liver, and then you end up with a lot of other issues. So, and the other thing too, I was going to tag on that, is that I had a doctor talk to one of my patients, and one of my patients brought in a supplement that I gave her, and they went right on the internet and started researching all the different ingredients. Well, this could interfere with this and this and this. And like, first of all, you don't even have any experience to even talk about nutrition because you weren't trained. So they're really good what they do, but I mean, to have them give you advice, you'd be better off asking a neighbor. I mean, just like they just don't have the background to. Just because you take biology or organic chemistry doesn't mean you know about nutrition until you work with. Some of the researchers out there never work with one person until you work with a lot of people and figure things out. Like the stuff that you learn in school, it doesn't always work, believe me. Like, I was taught this is what I'm supposed to do. But the guy teaching me never practiced. Yeah.
I have two questions.
Two more questions.
Please. I know, sorry. I'm just really interested in this. Chewable vitamins. What do you think about that? Versus?
Flintstones? Now, the chewable ones always contain too many, like glucose, dextrose, sugars, Flintstones, chemicals, synthetics.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect. No.
Yeah.
That's perfect. One question. Do you recommend any books that we could read in order to get started, or?
I have a book.
Okay.
Called The 7 Principles of Fat Burning, but really it should be called The 7 Principles of Getting Healthy. It's filled with a lot of good data on eating and false ideas and the kind of the practical things you can use, 7 Principles of Fat Burning. I'm writing another book. It's going to be a bit because but this one's going to be more on getting to more of the core, the causes of a lot of problems, just based on a lot of experience. And so that way, if you have a problem, it's like a reference book. You can go, oh, let me look at this. So we can differentiate cause and effect. Because in medicine, they collapse them together. They call the symptom the disease. You have reflux disease. Like, what? Acid reflux disease? That's a symptom. You are clinically depressed. That's a symptom. You can't sleep because you're depressed. Wait a second, those are both symptoms, like, it's just very confusing. Yeah, right. So I want to thank you for coming and have a great afternoon. And one more question.
I'm sorry. It's just this last one because I thought you might hit on it, but you didn't. That is using heat on oils.
Yeah, I Oh, yes, they do.
Not coconut.
Coconut can stand high heat, but many oils become denatured or altered with heat, especially olive oil. But some of the saturated oils like palm, peanut, coconut, butter, sesame seed, I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, so there's certain oils that you shouldn't cook with, but I like to cook with, sometimes we use safflower oil. I like coconut better, or butter. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you in the next seminar. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. We really do appreciate you. Before everyone leaves, I would like to ask if you would fill out the survey that you were given, and if you would just leave the, you're going to pick them up, thank you. And we really appreciate Dr. Berg. He has been given such a great gift he has a great mind for research, and then he has the ability to explain that research in such a simple way that we can really adapt it into our life. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate it, and we're going to look for that book very soon. We are going to be having other seminars as the year goes on. We're hoping we get Dr. Berg to come back again. He has graced our church so many times, and we feel like he's part of our family now. But I want you to just keep your eyes open, read the Informer, and you will see when we have other seminars coming up. I would like to encourage any of you who have not thought about taking part in our lifestyle program. Some of you know about it, some of you don't. We have a lifestyle program that we are doing. We meet once a month on the first Sunday of every month, and we're going to be carrying that program all the way through to December. So it's not just a 30-day program. It's a program to help you get healthy. It's not a focus on weight loss, but weight loss will come as you get healthy. So if you are in need of making some changes in your life and you would be interested in that program, you can see me at the end of our seminar here, and I'd be happy to give you more details on that. With that being said, I would appreciate it if we can stand for a word of prayer so that we can close. And I would also like to encourage you that if you have not been to see Dr. Berg, you want to go see him. He will change your life for the better. He helped me. I mean, he literally turned my life around. So I am very appreciative to Dr. Berg for many reasons. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much again for all that you've shared with us this evening. Help us, Lord, to take the things that we've heard this evening and apply them to our lives so that we can become healthier people. And Lord, help us to share the information we have with others. Help us, Lord, to talk to our neighbors, talk to our families, talk to our friends and our co-workers. Let them know about the gift of health that we have been given, so that we can spread this word, Lord, and help those around us to not have to be part of the degenerative diseases that are so common today. Lord, we ask that you would give us traveling mercies as we depart now, and we pray that you would give us a pleasant evening in spite of the rain. We thank you for the rain. We know we need it. Help us to have a restful sleep this evening, Lord, and allow us to wake tomorrow to serve you another day. We appreciate you, Father, and we love you dearly. And we thank you for answering this prayer that we ask humbly in Christ's holy name. Amen.